So today we're going to be talking about adapting to change, maintaining focus and well-being. And so part of that we'll be talking about things like resilience, resourcefulness, focus and attention. So there's a couple of things that are similar to what we did yesterday, because I've noticed there's some people here that were here yesterday, but there'll also be a number of new things in there. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Kerstin. I'm a coach, trainer and consultant, and I work with businesses and individuals. So to start, I'd love for you to just settle in for a moment and just put your pen down, put your teacup down, make sure you sit nice and comfortable. And if you like, close your eyes for a moment and take a nice deep breath. And just arrive here. And then I'd like you to think of one thing that was positive for you this morning, or one thing that you're grateful for, or one thing, one win that you've had either this morning or over the last couple of days. And then take another deep breath and think about what it is that you want to take away from this webinar. Think about what would make this next hour valuable for you and what outcome you would like for yourself. And then just keep that sort of outcome, or what you are looking to take away from this morning. Just keep that in mind, and you can open your eyes again and we can get started. So this is really a time for you, this next hour. And so with that outcome in mind, what I'd like to ask of you, if we get towards the end of the webinar and you haven't got the answer or the outcome that you're looking for, please ask, because, you know, I've put this webinar on for you guys to get some value out of it. So make sure you get that. Now, ideally, if at all possible, I'd love for you to just speak and just unmute yourself and ask a question. You don't have to wait to the end of the webinar to ask questions, although we will have some time for Q&A, but you're very welcome to just ask them as they come up. And I do prefer you to just unmute yourself. However, if that prevents you from asking a question, then by all means do use the chat function and write your question in there, and I will try my best to keep an eye on that, or at least at the end of the webinar I will check it and answer any questions that are in there. So what I'm asking from you is try and be present, engage, because this is really about creating a shift for you. So we're looking at creating transformation. I'm not here to give you loads of information. There's tons of information out there. Google is fantastic, and if we need more information, there's usually ways of getting that. But what I'm trying to create is a space for you where you have the opportunity and the possibility to think about things differently, to get a different perspective, and to shift something. So really we're looking at, you know, restoring and getting you back in touch with your resourcefulness, resilience, your adaptability, and your well-being. To start off with, I'm going to name what we're all in, and that is a situation, a circumstance that is full of uncertainty. And so the thing that has come up for me over this last few weeks is that certainty is an illusion. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, next week, next month, or even in a year from now. And that is more apparent now than it has ever been. However, that's always been the case. Okay, so we believe to have certainty, we believe to have a level of control, and that is because we plan for it, we organize for it, we work hard for a future that we're trying to create. And I'm definitely not knocking that quite far from it, and you'll see throughout the webinar that I'm really not suggesting that we should just, give up and completely surrender. But whilst planning and organizing and creating and working towards a better future is really important and valuable, I think what's important also is to bear in mind that that illusion of a certainty is just that, an illusion. And I think perhaps for the first time, I guess in my lifetime or in my generation, um, this level of certainty has been taken away from us, or we have lost it. More to be more precise, we've lost that level of certainty that we thought we had on a global level. So, and our first reaction tends to be to try and regain control and regain certainty, and we tend to do that by focusing on um, trying to control our external circumstances in a quest to get back a sense of security. But then we very quickly realize that actually it seems to have very little effect because the circumstances are what they are. So what we need to do instead is to focus on our internal processes, our natural resourcefulness, our resilience, and our adaptability to change. And also we need to pay a little bit of attention on the source of our experience, so that we can really find a way to create and find new possibilities to move forward. So I'm going to move right into this, and our feelings and our emotions are at the forefront of our experience. And this graph I've put together, and it's very high level. So, it's not very detailed because we could spend hours over this. But just to give us a common foundation for today that we're working from and that we're looking from. So our feelings and our emotions are at the forefront of our experience. And that's also what's very real. That's what's occurring in the moment. But there's also more to our experience than what shows up for us. Okay. And so our perspective is one element, and our perspective is the lens through which we're looking. Sometimes I refer to it's like a pair of glasses that you wear, and you may look through a pair of glasses that are very negative or that are very positive, or pair of glasses that is frustrated, or whatever it may be. You get the picture. And the other element is thought, and that is what we make of it. That is what we make of what we're experiencing. It's our judgments, our likes, our dislikes, desires, and it's also that voice in our head. So that internal dialogue, that voice that we probably all know very well, that, I don't know, tells us that we have too much work for the amount of time that we have, or that we want to be able to leave our house whenever we choose, or that working from home is difficult because the kids are too demanding, or that working from home is an absolute joy because we get to see our kids more. Whatever that voice is saying, okay? So that is the element of thought and what we make of it. And then we've obviously got our emotions, which is the feelings we have. I mean, anger, sadness, joy, whatever it is. And the important element here, I would say, is that, your feelings are 100% real. Okay, they actually occur, and they also have a physical manifestation. So you might feel tension, you might feel heat, or you might feel energy or tiredness, depending on the feeling, the emotion that you're experiencing. And then the fourth element is your experience, which is what occurs for you, what you perceive, what's playing out for you as a whole. And so when we look at this graph, the two elements that are very real, and I'm saying this in inverted commas, is our emotions and our experience, because that's what's playing out, that's what's happening, that is occurring in the moment. Now, our perspective and our thoughts are variables. So depending on how you look at the world and what you make of it, creates your feelings and ultimately your experience. So what I'm pointing you here is that it's not the circumstances, the situations, or the people you surround yourself with that creates your experience. What we're looking at here is that the lens through which you look and what you make of it, your perspective and your thoughts, have a huge impact on what you're going to feel and what you're going to experience. Okay, so just as an example, you could, and you can probably all relate to this. You wake up one morning and you feel full of energy, life is good, everything's positive, you're bouncing out of bed, and you're ready to take on the world and go and create and do what you do. And the next day you wake up and it's the complete opposite. You feel tired, you feel exhausted, you just want to stay in bed and put the duvet over your head and sleep for another 2 hours. But really, in your circumstances, in your situation, nothing has changed. Okay. And it's this variable that we're looking at, this invisible variable that we're often not aware of. So the reason I'm showing you this is because this is not a new tool or a new strategy that I want you to learn now and practice. It's simply a way of demonstrating or explaining how our system works and where there is area that we could perhaps shine a bit of a flashlight on. So it's really just a way of showing what's happening. So I'm not sure how this is landing for you, because I know this is quite a lot and just scratching the surface and just throwing it at you. If you do have any questions, just unmute yourself and shoot. So I presume we don't have any questions, which is fab. So if we know how the system works, we also understand that there are implications to it. So knowing the implications of something enables us to work with the system and not against it. So it's a bit like gravity. We all know how gravity works. So therefore, we know how to move around in a space that has gravity. We all know we can't fly unless we sit in an aeroplane. So this is the same. It's knowing the implications of it. And I'm going to mention only 2 implications. There are more, but for the sake of what we're looking at today, I think the two that are important is a quiet mind and better relationships. And so one of the implications of knowing how the system works, or the source of our experience, so to speak, is that your mind becomes more quiet. So what do I mean with more quiet? It's that internal dialogue, that voice in your head that creates less noise, less chatter, less internal dialogue from that voice in your head. Okay. And a noisy mind is usually a negative mind. This is just my observation, so you don't have to believe me. You can, look at it for yourself. But in my observation is that a noisy mind is usually a negative mind. And a positive mind is usually quiet because it's fully absorbed in the experience and fully engaged. So again, I'm not sure how this is landing with you so far, but let's assume that you can see how the system works, and therefore you know that your circumstances, the situations you're in, and the people around you don't create your experience. And you realize that the way you look at it, i.e. your perspective, the glasses you wear, and what you make of it, your thoughts, that's what creates your experience. Now, what that means is that there is nothing for you to do except wait for either your perspective to change or for your thoughts to change. And our thoughts change constantly. So that's good news. So you don't have to wait for a very long time. But to give you an example, maybe you have a problem to solve, an issue at work, a relationship that needs to have a conversation and you're not sure how to go about it, or whatever else it may be. You have a problem to solve and you keep trying to figure it out, trying to find a solution, and nothing comes up and nothing quite seems to be the right thing. And then you go for a walk on the beach, or you go for a run, or you paint, or whatever it is you do where you stop trying to figure it out. And that's where you get your best ideas. So I know that most people get their best ideas when they, go for a walk or have a shower or just switch off and do whatever they do. And this is a perfect example of how our system works. When we stop trying to interfere, when we stop trying to focus on fixing something out there, and we step back, literally you could say let go of it. I know it's very cheesy. That's when the system will recalibrate and a new thought will come up. Okay, so you don't need to try so hard to fix a situation. If there's something to fix, you will realize that quite effortlessly, as long as you don't get caught up in your circumstances or in being a victim, and more on the victim side later. But the question I'd like to ask you at this moment, and you can make a note of it or just a mental note, is how would you show up differently in your life, in your work, knowing this?
I think that this is a general approach when you deal with a problem and you really struggle with it. You kind of get a cramp in your mind and you cannot really change anything, which makes it even worse to stand. And when you let go of that, when you just take a deep breath and you calm your mind and you just get some distance from that, it's generally much easier. Also, that is why maybe a distraction, like you said, having a shower, or for me, always having a night of sleep and sleeping over the problem is always helping. And concentrating on the next day usually makes a big change.
Absolutely, Marvin. Thank you very much. I'm just going to use another metaphor here, which is one that has worked very well for me. I don't know if we have any kite surfers here, but there was a point a number of years back where I gave kite surfing a try. Not ever going to do it again because I'm not very good at it. But there's one thing I've learned, and that's when you have this kite in your hand, and I was on the beach trying to control this kite, and the wind goes into it, your initial response, your initial reaction, and it's very much a reaction, is to pull the kite because you're trying to control it. So you pull it in. And what happens is when you pull that kite in, the kite surfers in here will know, the kite will either take you or it will crash. Mine always crashed, obviously. And what you're meant to do is you're meant to let go of that kite, because the moment you let go of it, the wind has no power in it and it will just hover above you. And this is one of those examples that in my mind, or a metaphor that beautifully relates, demonstrates this, of us trying to control it is not working. What happens there is we're fighting against it. We need to just take a step back and allow the system to do what it does best. So thank you, Marvin. The second implication is better relationships. So when we're aware of the source of our experience, so that it's not created by our circumstances, situation, and other people, we absolutely know that other people cannot think the way that we do. So every single person here on this webinar will have a completely different experience of it. And every single person on this planet will have a different experience of the current situation. You could say we have 8 billion, I think that's the current global population. You could say we have 8 billion separate realities walking around on this planet. So, have you ever watched a movie with friends and family and you all had a completely different experience of it? Possibly, yes. Do you have siblings that you've grown up with exactly the same way, same household, same school, similar schools, same environment, similar friends, yet you think and live and show up in the world very differently. I once spoke to a police officer, and he told me that when they take statements, let's say of an accident, for example, they get completely different stories from every single person that is a witness. And I know we often would put something like that down to, well, they would have a different agenda. But actually, it's down to the fact that we all have a different perspective. We all have a different experience of what's occurring. And there is no way any other person can see the world, can think about things, and can have the same perspective as we do. So being aware of that really enables us to listen better and communicate better, because we're not trying to get someone to think the way we do. Instead, we try and utilize the fact that perhaps they are seeing things differently, or they see things similar to us but with another angle. So instead, we try and utilize everyone's different ways of thinking and being, and we can create better results through that. So I'm sure you all work in teams or have friends and family where understanding this would really help you to have a deeper and more connected relationships. So again, you can just make a mental note of how would your relationships, and perhaps if you're a leader, because I know we have some leaders in the call today, and your leadership change, knowing this, how would that impact how you engage with people? So these implications arise because of who we are and our inherent capacity for resilience, our resourcefulness, and our adaptability. So our resilience is really our ability to bounce back, to pick ourselves up when we have fallen, and to keep going, right? Our resourcefulness, actually I've got on here, is adaptability, so I'll speak about that first. So adaptability is our ability to adjust, to modify to new ways of doing things, new ways of being, new routines, new structures, new systems. And it's also our ability to find new ways of creating something new, of innovating. Now, our resourcefulness is our ability to find new solutions, new ideas, and to overcome challenges. Okay. Now, the reason I brought these inherent capacities up is because our inherent capacities are already within each and every one of us. They are not things outside there that we need to learn and acquire. Opposite to what we often are being told, that you know 5 steps to be more resilient, 10 steps to be more resourceful, etc., etc. It suggests that it's something that we need to learn, something that's out there, and something we don't have. Now, what I'm saying is you've already got all of that. So you can look at it with small children, for example. They display it beautifully. You have to have a sip of tea. So if you watch a toddler learning to walk, it doesn't matter how many times that toddler falls over. He will keep getting up. He will keep trying. He will find things to pull himself up on. He'll find things to hold on to push along. Anything. It could be a walker, it could be a chair, it could be a stool, whatever. They'll use whatever they can find to continue to be on the path of learning to walk. And if there are obstacles, the toddler will find ways of climbing over it. So it perfectly displays our resilience, our resourcefulness, and our adaptability. And we've all done that. And every toddler in the world is going to do that. Because that resilience is inbuilt. It's like your default setting on your computer. It's already there. So if you think about it, there's never been a toddler, or not that I know, so correct me if I'm wrong, but there's never been a toddler that has tried to walk a few times and then given up and gone, you know what, not doing this. Mom, dad, you can just carry me around for the rest of my life. I'm not doing this. It doesn't work that way. It's there. We just do it. We just keep continuing and finding new ways and moving forwards. But okay, so I get that sometimes we don't realize that we have the capacity for resilience, adaptability, and resourcefulness. And that sometimes we, even though we might know that we have the capacity, we can't seem to access it or get to it. Okay. We've been conditioned out of it. We've been told for years growing up and in the media and all of that, and I'm not trying to blame them, that, we need to learn these things, we need to get better at them, we need to improve, and it's always focused on things externally. But it's already there. So what we're going to look at now is different ways, different things we can either pay attention to, or we could even practice them if you so wish, to find your way back to your inherent capacities and to create more access to it if you have lost it, or to increase it if you want to pay more attention to that. So actually, by the way, if you would like to dive a little bit deeper into accessing your inherent capacities, I have a very good recording. It's a fantastic recording by my colleague Jamie Smart, which some of you have maybe heard of. He's a best-selling author, so he's awesome. And I'm very happy to share that with you. So if you want that recording at the end of the webinar or tomorrow, just drop me an email and I'm happy to send it off to you. So the first element that we can utilize or use to really get back in touch with our inherent capacities is acceptance. And we spoke about it yesterday as well. And when we talk about acceptance, it's not about agreeing. It's not about putting your head in the sand and giving up and being a pushover. It's acceptance is being with what is, that will enable us to step powerfully into creating, reinventing new possibilities, and being at our best. Okay, because earlier on we were talking about, that kite, for example, and that quiet mind is when we're resisting, when we're fighting against it, when we're trying to get that control, we create friction. And we don't work well with friction. We're designed to work in a state of flow. Okay, so you could also look at it in the sense of, it's like you've got a little go-kart and you're having to pull it up the hill. Whereas if you just let it roll down the hill, you turn around and let it roll down the hill, you're in flow. You're going with it. Okay, so I've just given you a quick graph of how I think about acceptance, and that is that we need to stay in action. Okay, we need to take action, whatever that means, in whatever way we do that. Okay, whether that's work related, personal life, whether that's actively going to do something, or whether that's, I don't know, sitting and reading a book, whatever it is, there's action and then there is surrender. And so being in action, but surrendering to the outcome, that allows us to be in the flow. Okay, so my skills in creating a graph aren't that great, so there should be another line going across where the two circles join and you have flow in the middle. So if you think about someone like Usain Bolt, when he was running his world record sprinting, his world record. There was an interview where he was asked, well, what were you thinking about? And he said he was thinking about nothing. There was nothing on his mind. And that is a perfect example of action and complete surrender, which allowed him to be in the flow, which allowed him to be at his best performance. That was his peak performance. And he continued to do it, right? So there's a lovely quote by Werner Erhard where he says, whatever you are pushing against, you are stuck to. And so we can utilize acceptance. You can also talk about it in the sense of what is. And we spoke about that briefly yesterday, is being present to what is. That's where we can engage with it. We can take action. We can create from. Versus when we're in a state of what if, it's very passive. It's creates uncertainty, and it again creates a lot of overthinking in our minds. Okay, so just looking at this chart, I'd like you to ask yourself, where do you spend most of your time? Do you spend most of your time in action? Or do you spend most of your time in surrender? And depending, it might depend on what it is relating to. Could be different for work to personal life, or depending on the goal or the outcome you're working towards that you are on different sides. But this can give you a real indication on where the friction is occurring. Is it too much action? Is it trying too much to be in control? Or is it too much surrender, meaning we're not actually moving forwards and stepping into the potential and the possibilities that we have? Okay. So that was acceptance. Do we have any questions around that? I think we're good. So, little experiment. The people that were here yesterday, they've already done this, so just play along just for fun. So grab your pen and paper, and you've got 30 seconds. And what I'd like you to do is have a look around where you are and write a list of everything that's green. Okay. Only for 30 seconds. You don't have to get all of the things that are green, but just start by making a list. Okay. And then I'd like you to put your pen down, close your eyes for a moment, and I'd like you to make another list in your mind of everything that is brown. And then have a look around and see what else there is brown in your room, perhaps. Okay. Are there things that you've missed that you didn't notice? Possibly. I mean, most of you will be at home, so this is a bit difficult to do because we all know our home environments and know exactly what things look like and what color they have. The point of this exercise is to demonstrate to you that you will experience what you pay attention to. So we've all had this where we've been really focused on something, whether that's maybe we've been writing an email or a report at work, and there was some sort of commotion or an argument going on in the office, and we weren't aware of it at all. Or maybe you were at home and I don't know, maybe you were watching something on Netflix that was particularly engaging, and there was a thunderstorm outside, and again, you didn't notice. You weren't aware of it. And that's because What you pay attention to is what you're going to experience. So this becomes particularly important in a time when, in circumstances that we are in at the moment, because there is tons of information, tons of news out there at the moment, some very positive and some very negative. And whatever it is that you consume, not just physically, but mentally, is what you're going to experience. So, in the world out there, what you listen to, what you read, what you engage with, whether that's news, social media, nature, conversations with other people, what you engage with, what you focus on, and what you pay attention to is what you're going to experience. So, in that, there is a choice that you can choose purposefully what it is that you're wanting to experience. And perhaps the more important area is our internal dialogue. So, again, coming back to that voice in our head that we all have, of the thoughts and the beliefs that we have. And it's again choosing what thought to listen to, what belief to buy into, what thought to give attention to. Because ultimately, wherever you go, whatever thought you're following is what you're going to experience. So when you leave work, or a few weeks ago when we were still leaving work physically, and maybe you weren't able to finish all the tasks that you were hoping to do, and there was a deadline looming, and you spent the rest of the evening and half the night thinking about needing to complete this task, and that you should have done it, and feeling guilty, feeling stressed about it. That's that voice I'm referring to. And whether you need to follow that and pay attention to that, or whether that is futile, because in the moment where you are, there is nothing you can do about it. Unless maybe you can log in online and do it at home. But unless you actually choose to take action on it, and we're coming back to that acceptance, taking action, surrender, unless you can actually do something about it, there becomes very little point in ruminating and allowing our thoughts to go on about it. Okay. So we're coming to ownership, my favorite bit. So the owner-victim distinction really originated with Steve Chandler, who's one of my coaches and teachers, and he describes it as that there is two kinds of people. You're either an owner or you're a victim. And I'd like to distinguish that in the sense that there is two ways of being. You can show up as an owner, and you can show up as a victim. And you as one person may show up as an owner in some parts of your life and as a victim in other parts of your life. So the reason I'm trying to get that across is because there isn't a box that we're in as a person. There's room to move and change, and there's neuroplasticity, which we've all discovered about, I think 20 odd years ago, that, our brains continue to change and adapt, and the neural pathways that are being strengthened continue to change depending on how we operate and how we think, etc. So all of this, we have some power over in impacting and changing. So a victim very much sees life as being unfair, as life being a burden, And they often have that viewpoint of life is something to get through. They often focus on the problems, and the problems are things that can't be changed or solved. They are something to get through. That problem will pass. And you hear it often at the moment in the current circumstances. People keep saying, well, this too shall pass. You know, it's like, well, this is all pretty, try not to swear, terrible at the moment, but you know, it will pass. And so we are very much in that mindset of, yeah, we're victims here, but we'll just have to get through it and hang in there and it will be over soon. And when people speak that way, when it's over, there'll be something else that will be a case of, well, that too will pass too, and we'll get through that until we get to the next problem. Okay, so it's very disempowering. So compare that to the owner who takes full responsibility of their experience of their life. So they see life as an energy source, as something that they can use to create and to move forwards. And the language and the viewpoint is often one of, what can I get out of this? What am I taking away from that? What am I learning? How is this helping me to grow? How is this helping me to be stronger, more resourceful? How is this challenging me to be more innovative, to create something new? So the circumstance and the situation is no different, but the way we operate and the way we move forwards with and the way we see it is opposite sides of the spectrum. So the question is often, well, what can I do about it? You know, we have years of being conditioned. We have people that we engage with, things that we read, things that we hear, that ultimately can have an impact on how we see and view the world. And often the question comes up, so what do I do if I am a victim? If I do see myself as a victim, how do I switch that? How do I change it? And it's coming back to the language we use, and not just the language we use when we speak to people in conversations or in our emails, but also the language we use, most importantly, when we talk to ourselves. You know, when we're back, we're going right back again to the internal dialogue that we have, is to start being impeccable with your word. And what I mean by being impeccable with your word, it's take a magnifying glass to the way you speak, to the words you use, and look for the things that will tell you that you're looking at it from a victim point of view. And then you can turn it around. So I'd like you to do just one quick exercise. So put a line under whatever you wrote earlier with the list of green and brown. And I'd like you to write down 3 things, only 3 things, that your current situation has allowed you to learn, has something that is a gift, something that is a positive, something that has enabled you to move forward and change the way you show up. So 3 things, could be anything, and you don't have to share it. This is just for your own purpose. So I'll just give you 1 minute or so to do that. So 3 things that you're taking away from this situation you're in, that you've learned, has helped you to grow. Cool. Okay, so we're getting to the last element, and that is being present, and we get to hear that a lot. So we all know, but I'm going to say it anyway, is the only place life happens is right here and right now. Okay, so being present means to be engaged and focused on whatever it is you're doing. Okay, and for this to occur, your mind needs to be quiet or still from that internal chatter, that voice in your head. So we keep coming back to that voice that keeps you worried about a meeting, or procrastinating over an important task, or guilty for not spending enough time with the family, or anxious over a presentation, or whatever else it is. Okay, the important thing is that all of us enter states of presence every day. So sometimes for short moments and sometimes for longer. But every time we do, it is that we're completely engrossed and engaged in the task that we are doing. We're being fully present. And you can think of this now. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of occasions where you have moments where you're fully engaged in what you're doing, whether that's, I don't know, doing a piece of work that requires you to focus and you're fully attentive to that, or whether it is whilst you're going for a run, or cooking, or whatever it is you're doing. Whatever action you're in, there is the possibility for you to enter that state of complete presence. And I often think about it in terms of the sky. So the sky is always blue, even when it's cloudy. Even today, if you're in Gibraltar, we can't see the blue sky. All we can see is grey clouds. But the sky is constant. It's always blue. So that's always there. And the clouds or the weather is like that internal chatter that we have, those thoughts that we have. And they pass. So sometimes the blue sky is revealed suddenly, and sometimes it's covered with the clouds. And that's what happens for us every day. Our minds are full, our minds are busy, and then there are moments where it clears and where we're fully present and engaged. And so that's perhaps something to keep in mind, that, again, the weather passes, the weather changes, but your ability to be present is always there. So, and you don't have to meditate in order to be present. Now, if it's something you enjoy doing and you want to do, then absolutely go for it. You know, I'm a fan, but I also know that you don't have to be a meditator in order to enter states of presence. We humans are designed for change. We're designed to adapt, reinvent, innovate, and to create new possibilities. And so I see the current situation as a culprit. Although we really don't need another COVID-19, but it has been a culprit for us to do things in a better way, to find better ways of being, find better ways of working, find better ways of living. Now that ability already exists, okay? So I guess the question is, what are you going to create from this? How are you going to move forwards, knowing that you have all the capacities, all the resourcefulness, all the resilience, and the adaptability to move forward in whichever way you choose? And just to put it out there, it could be anything. It could be taking full action and, you know, pushing forwards in your business and your work, or it could be taking time off. Again, it starts with you. It starts with who you are and how you want to show up in the world. So we have some time for questions, but just before I forget, before we move to question is, first of all, thank you very much. I do have some resources that I'm happy to share with you. One is the one I mentioned from Jamie Smart, around our inherent capacities and ways of accessing that. So if you want that, just email me. You've got my email there, and I can send it to you. Also, I've got the PDF of our webinar from yesterday, Leading Through Change. So if you're interested in that, I can also send that to you. And if anyone wants to discuss anything of the webinar today, or want to discuss how this might be helpful for you personally or for your organization, then again, just get in touch. You can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook, and there's also a group, Working Minds group on LinkedIn, that you're very welcome to join.